If both parents are more attached to a phone, more attached to their work, we have greater and greater isolation of individuals of any age, but many children, they can't wait to get their phone, and the wonders of technology for children. I can't deny it, absolutely. But where are the humans?
Okay, Stephanie, welcome to the show. To get started, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your background and maybe any personal struggles you've had with addiction over the years?
Thank you. Thank you, Niall, for the invitation to be here in this wonderful uh, university. I appreciate it very much. And to talk about speed, technology, the impact on all of us, which I think it grows clearer and clearer each day uh, as we turn ourselves over to technology and speed. Um, I have been in the field of addiction for decades and decades, and I'll say, I've been a professional psychologist in the field of addiction. Really, there wasn't a field when I started, so that would have been, 50 years ago, and addiction didn't have a home. So my own addiction steered me into asking questions that hadn't been asked before. So my own personal struggles with addiction go back to childhood. And then I'm so fortunate, able to, as a recovering alcoholic for over 50 years, I've been able to ask the questions, the professional questions, the research questions, and to appreciate story, to appreciate people coming to see themselves all of these years and walk professional paths, personal paths. It's very hard for me to do this quickly. We could do the whole interview on my personal struggles. And that's what the developmental model of addiction and recovery. Nobody ever understood recovery. Everybody wanted to cure it. People still think people should be able to use or drink or be out of control or live out of control. What about stopping? I grew up with two alcoholic parents, and that will shape a person.
Mm.
And they were severely out of control. So my childhood development, my identity, all the pieces of my psychology, which I came later to value studying and understanding, but my childhood experience was geared for loss of control, for out of control behavior, emotion, thinking, use, drinking all the time in my family, to be normal, not abnormal. We tend to think of addiction as abnormal, maybe the worst of all possible problems a person could have. And what I came to talk about early on was the normalization of loss of control with my development, my growing up. And so I couldn't wait to join the crowd. And I did as a teenager, and I was in serious trouble immediately. I'm very fortunate and grateful that this isn't the place for my personal story in such detail, but that it was, I was given the path to stop, to not die, basically, which is what I thought was my destiny, and instead to be able to stop and begin to ask questions, as I mentioned earlier. which is what I've done all of this time. It's a very different path of theory, of practice, of thinking than outcome-based, linear exploration, which has become, the gold mine of science. And I will say right now, I don't consider myself a scientist, and that's a great position for me to have taken, because I'm not trying to fit into a mold of science thinking or practice. What I want to do is understand the experience, and the experience of loss of control for adults, for lots of people, whether it's with alcohol, food, gambling, sexuality, tobacco, driving, the slot machines, and then comes technology to feed the need, which is the compulsions. And addiction is a massive regression. The loss of control is a massive regression. So that society started to behave with technology becoming so out of control for so many people. A massive group of a big playground of 4-year-olds in the loss of control. Now, I realized that I went from my own personal experience to the last piece of research that I've done. And in between, in these years, I've been so fortunate to be able to write, to teach, to work with professionals and patients, to try to bring this different way of thinking about addiction. And mental health still really is based in the linear in our day and age, and the outcome and the binary for what counts. And so I long ago settled into not worrying about what counts in that science frame. And that's again helpful. I want to understand the depth of experience and what happens. We are in a time of radical transformation. I've been able to write about that. That's what happens for many people who come to see that they have lost control. Then usually that's been with, I'm an alcoholic, I cannot control my drinking. The alcoholic is the identity. The I cannot control my drinking is behavior. And the emotion is right there, because for most people, when this reality comes, I have lost control, I need help. And that's the self letting go of that sense. I can do everything. I can do anything. I'm in control. I don't have a problem. And many people think about an active addiction characterized by denial, skewed thinking, distortion. We have plenty of examples. Most people know people who can't bear the sense of limits, can't understand it, need to be always going after more. And in the world of speed, when I was writing early on about this, it was more, better, faster. More, better, faster. That was the slogan for what's important in life. What is a success is to always be seeking more. And so that's where the binary came in. And my distaste for binary, my wish to get myself out of this mess of binary. Somebody wants a yes or a no answer. No, there's so many possibilities.
Okay,
And
so this is that's a fascinating introduction, Stephanie, I have to say. And there's you've been on an incredible journey, and you've immersed yourself in this field for the past, I don't know how many decades, but you know this subject inside out. So something I'm really curious to ask you about is, what do you see as the root causes of addiction? What would you say, just to give us a big picture overview of the root causes, where do you see them coming from?
Oh, again, thank you for that. But I'm going to give you one of those answers of going around it, because uh, everything, everything. And you said, wait a second here. That's not an answer. Everything. Well, I think that addiction it's an internal struggle, ultimately within the self. It's a battleground for control, for this belief, for this false belief. But as you've seen from the work on speed, I'm a developmentalist. So that means I do get to say everything, that there are, there's the understanding in child development that there's sensory first, there's touch, smell, taste, for the senses, there's behavior, the beginnings of crawling and walking. How do we become who we are with all the progressive development of this? Behavior, emotion comes in, language comes in. Language is the medium of control. Behavior is often way out of control, and the tantrum will find its way into use your words. No biting for the toddler on the playground. Use your words. So that's how the young person grows up within the containing structure, hopefully of parents or caregivers. However, our society values control. And that's where speed and addiction have just gotten completely wild, and the centerpiece really of so many people's lives, certainly in technology. If you have a cornerstone belief, a foundational belief that you shouldn't have any limits, that one shouldn't have any limits, just go for it, just throw the mud at the wall, then there's value to that. It's not that isn't a strategy, absolutely. But where do we put shape on things these days? How do we do that? What do we call things? And we've seen such a transformation societally. And I'm thinking, and when I was writing this, I was thinking about what this loss of control, what the speediness does to individuals, adults, and children. So that I also have written about technology, the impact on children, and how does it, what's the impact on the normal developmental tasks that we have known, many people have known so well. Now you asked me, what's addiction? An addiction to me, fundamentally, that war within the self to try and foster and supplant my false belief that I have all this power, control, that the limits don't apply to me, the rules don't apply to me. So you can see here what I'm describing for you. That's not behavior there. That's the change in the thinking that builds grandiosity. Addiction is, I keep needing more of something, whatever it is. I need more. I want more. And then my mind creates the reasons why this is a good idea, the reasons why it's not a problem, the reasons why I believe it. Okay? So there's a huge input from cognition, from thinking in addiction. As you could see in the 20 questions, there's behavior, cognition, emotion. And those are three, and there are more besides that, as we're talking about here. And what binary thinking aims to do in our day and age is to choose one of those and then to take a piece of it and make do a project, a research, or a determination so that something can be more certain. Well, we don't have certainty. There's so much philosophy, so much that we can't know. And addiction, really, universally, addiction exists. Societies may put limits on people, but other than that, it's been shown that that becoming out of control for human beings is a universal condition. Does everybody become out of control? No, because societies have developed culture and limits and parents whose job it has been to watch and set the limits and do that containing that I was showing you. The parents say, use your words as kids are growing up. Why don't you come in and tell me, where am I in your elaborations of addiction or talking about addiction?
Well, for me, from what you're saying, there are a lot of parallels with a gentleman called Ian McGilchrist, who we also interviewed for this summit. He's called Ian McGilchrist, and he has this hemispheric hypothesis of the brain, where essentially there's a big difference between how the left hemisphere understands the world and how the right hemisphere understands the world. And he thinks that, you know, the left hemisphere is all about grasping and narrow focus, and you know, it's this sort of narrow range of attention. It's very binary. It's very either on or off. Whereas the right hemisphere is more about a holistic understanding, and it sees things in the broadest possible context. It's nuanced. It sees the relationship between things. And his theory is that we are more and more becoming a left hemisphere dominated society, and this is getting us into all kinds of trouble. So I think you would love his work. His book's called The Master and His Emissary, and it's very related to what you're saying here. But the next question I would love to ask you about, Stephanie, is you wrote a really interesting book on, it's called Speed, and it's all about, you know, viewing speed as an addiction that many in our culture are hooked on. And you know, I'm just curious, what would you say the central thesis of this book is, and what motivated you to write this book?
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Also, that's fantastic. The central issues of speed.
Sorry, the central thesis of your book, you know, if you were explaining your book to a
Yeah.
10-year-old and you had to really just sum it up in a few sentences, like how would you describe it very simply to somebody, you know, the big idea?
Well, it's the simple description that's hard because there's so much paradox involved in what happens, and it's very difficult because people want to, when I'm describing the loss of control of society, the society behaving with speed and certainly Silicon Valley here, 20, 30 years ago, the beginnings of it, I was watching close by here, and I was already, you know, very much working with addiction. And it seemed to me that society was beginning to look, think, sound just like the addicted people that I worked with, just like myself, my family. Nobody had any idea about recovery. And they were calling it success. Our society was built. I really went to town on Manifest Destiny, with Manifest Destiny in the book, because we, as a people, developed the grandiosity as part of our character. We owned it. This exceptionalism, which just baffles me, that that people talk about it on the news these days as something that's real, something that, you know, should we think about letting go of our exceptionalism? What I say, wait, that's where the limits come. The grandiosity, the bigness of everything. And as you see in the book, I recommend small steps. That big actually takes us off of cliffs. We get into trouble and we don't follow with understanding of what is happening or what we've done. So society, our American character, as I write about it, starts from this base of grandiosity. If I'm going to think of myself as a regular person, unexceptional in that sense, by virtue of being American, then I will also, according to Manifest Destiny in the way my reading of things, then I would also have to see that I wasn't going to make progress, or I was a failure in some sense. And so I think we are hopefully going to need to come to terms with that characterization of ourselves as a people. I hope that. And speed isn't just about Americans. It's about everybody.
This
So,
this is so this is so interesting, Stephanie. And I discovered your work through Oliver Berkman, his book, The 4,000 Weeks, where he features your work in there. And something that you two definitely have in common is that a central theme seems to be that our unwillingness to embrace and face our limitations gets us into so much trouble. Like, that seems to be a big problem here. Could you maybe expand
yeah.
on that a little more, and why that is an issue, like this inability to face our limitations?
Well, the thank you for that, and thank you for Oliver. Oh, um, the limitations, along with I want to add in here, I want to make it more complicated, because the limitations, okay, they're there, but part of that American character, or part of character, is to be as uh, no limits, but also the individual has become, maybe over the last 75 years, I'm not sure, but the individual has the highest status. So that we, in my view, I mean, this is my take, but that ultimate power and control, which are the two keys to addiction.
Mm.
I've got the power here. I can stop when I want. I'm not out of control. And the same with the phone, the same with and the rush that comes, and the rush and the rush. I can stop anytime I want. This false belief in human power, in my power, feeds the sense I don't have any limits. And
Mm.
the no limits gets tested in every possible kind of uh, use of substances, technology. I, I have examples in the book of early on, as the machines, as the computers took over the job of the information holding and gathering. I would talk with people who couldn't turn it off at night, couldn't go home, because they felt like they were failing if they needed sleep. This is absolutely true. Absolutely true. The bizarre sense of not being able in some way to become the machine, to be it, to merge with it in a sense, a psychological concept, to become that holder of all of that information. And people that they would take up alcohol. They hadn't had it before, or they had, but they began to behave in relation to their technology. I want to go faster and faster, and that's the key to success. That's the key to progress. And I can't have any limits. My computer doesn't have limits. Why do I have limits? And this just push it away, move on. Our language is all about cutting things short. the word efficiency drives me crazy. If this is sufficient, stop it, go. If we're not finishing something up and moving on, tidying up, and not carrying too much baggage of detail and complexity, which is all about me, then we've done something wrong. There's this anxiety to keep moving, moving where? I worked with many young people 15 years ago, just couldn't stop themselves. Car accidents, in the service of not shutting your computer off at night. Now, you may be thinking, this is just bizarre. Most people don't behave this way. Well, there are shades of this kind of turning the human self over to the power of the computer. That's how I began to see addiction and alcohol, because people may take a first drink, a first puff, a first something, because it's going to help them in some sense. And they start to relax, they can sleep. And so, oh gosh, this alcohol helped me. I'm more social. I'm a better conversationalist, whatever it might be. Let's go party. We can let loose. This was the way of losing control. And people felt no limits, perhaps, but the alcohol became the power. And as people begin to develop problems and become addicted, then they have lost the control. They need limits that they cannot produce from within. And in our culture, they're not coming in the world around them now. There's still more and more sense of excitement about no limits. And go ahead.
Something that's coming to mind for me here now, I haven't thought about it in a long time, but I think I'm not sure, but I think it might have been Carl Jung that said it. It was something like, God is essentially what you have at the top of your value hierarchy, right? So if you don't have a sophisticated conceptualization of God, whether in the form of a religion or something that you've really thought through, like some kind of really coherent life philosophy, then you still need to have something at the top of your value hierarchy. So if you don't have like organized religion or any of these things like that, then there's a vacuum there, and something needs to fill that vacuum. And it seems that, you know, what we're talking about here, this glorification of the self and this glorification of being limitless, etc., etc. It seems that that's gone to the top of our value hierarchy, and addictions as well, because of this vacuum of something bigger than ourselves. You know, I'm just curious about your thoughts on that, and what your thoughts are on maybe the link between spirituality and addiction, and what's at work there.
Wow. Wonderful your memory about Carl Jung. He was known he is known still to this day, certainly in recovery. And Carl Jung was known originally for talking with the person who had tried everything for help with his drinking, and he couldn't stop. And he went to see Dr. Jung, and Dr. Jung said to him, you need to try AA. I don't have those answers for you. So, and you're saying that, you're saying that here, what is there to vest that power in, that control, your value system as it goes? It's bigger than religion. It's spirituality is lots of people within the programs of recovery, certainly AA and all of the other ones, have that as a core. You know, you are not the power. In essence, I am not the power. I have lost control.
Why do you think that works?
Why do you think? I think it's, oh my gosh, I've written about this actually. And it's when you said it works, I just went, oh, because that word sounds like it can be extracted and mined and passed along. Oh, this is such a path for each individual person. That's in the book too. When I get to the second half where we're in recovery, and people want to understand and take the best of something, but I had to be completely in a surrender mode myself. I had to. People will in their stories talk about needing to lose it all before they can grasp that they don't have the control they think they do, and that
Mm.
one of the keys that I've, again, this is in my writings. People hit a bottom. That's a familiar term. And uh, and what happens is I can't try any harder to control my drinking. I can't try any harder to to be the source of power. But it's a giving up of trying. Now, in our culture, we want to approach those people often as, let's give it another try. We think success is to be able to drink. I don't have that particular belief, so that I will be sitting with people as they are coming to terms with their limits, as you
Mm.
so put it so well. I don't want to talk them out of the fact that they have limits. And I will be there as witness, as a person to be working with them, to be able to come to terms that they have limits. Then they say, but I can't, I can't stop. And I'll sit. And then the next step is the action step. And that's not trying harder anymore. In the belief system that will herald the beginnings of recovery is, I need help. It isn't going to come from me. Oh my gosh, it always had to come from me. I need to be the source of the power, the ego-centered power. The I need help is the reaching out of self to ask for help. And that may come in many ways. And as you were saying with Carl Jung earlier, the spiritual base, many people, depending on their background, programs of recovery, treatment programs are worldwide. And people have a mistaken view that they're religious, and that allows people to say, that's not for me. But each person individually, as Carl Jung made so clear, you will find within you, you didn't quote him in that, but you will find within you the path, the source of power. You will reach out as you listen and hear. And how does that change take place? By coming to terms with limits, with my limits. And that next step has to be there in terms of the movement into recovery and the change, because otherwise people will go on the merry-go-round and they'll stay. Okay, I didn't get control this time. Let me try again. What
Mm.
is it that I can learn? What can I do to get control? We want to be that machine, apparently. We don't have that control.
This is so interesting, and you've described that really well. That it's sparked new thoughts in me. It's making me think that maybe, again, apologies for my language here, but I'm just going to say it again. Maybe why that works, or why that is so effective, this giving up of control and this facing limitations, is that maybe it creates a shift in identity in the person experiencing, and they realize, okay, like, I'm not just this individual isolated ego. I'm connected to something much larger than myself, and then focus goes out from the self and into the world around. And there's elements in AA that sort of seem to really support this, like this aspect of service and
Oh,
uh,
yes. Yes.
helping others through their struggles too.
Right.
But I was wanting to ask Stephanie about, this particular summit is really, it's for mental health professionals and people working in the therapeutic professions. And you've, spent much of your working life in that area yourself. So your book is all around, the addiction to speed. And I just, I think it's important to ask, why is this important for mental health professionals to understand this and become aware of this addiction and to take it seriously? Because I know some people, whenever they hear addiction, they think like substance abuse, they think alcohol, they think really, these really severe things. But from reading your book, it's quite clear to me that speed is a really, really serious addiction that we have to take seriously. But how would you make the argument to someone that was skeptical about taking this seriously?
Thank you for your comments and grasp of this. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and understanding. It is so serious, and yet, I experienced this. The book is 9.5 years old. It'll be 10 years old in January. It's out of print. Penguin said it didn't sell. It was, it was just a whoa. And that's right. The message, I thought I was way late, way late. And people did not want to see it. And with this particular book, others as well, because there's a lot that is out there now about the impact of technology on child development, the impact on kids, and that's fantastic. So that there is a movement well underway. Films, there's wonderful, there's important understanding that I talk about to professionals about the impact on attachment bonds. If both parents are more attached to a phone, more attached to their work, we have greater and greater isolation of individuals of any age, but many, many children, they can't wait to get their phone, and the wonders of technology for children. I can't deny it, absolutely. But where are the humans? Where are the human beings who will be shepherding from birth all the way on up? Where are the human beings to form emotional attachment bonds with another human being over their relationship to their technology? Here's another really important key about addiction. People take their bottles to bed. People have the primary friendship with a bottle of alcohol. There are so many similarities to get my comfort, to get my hit. And people have the language of addiction as they talk about, got to get on, got to get online, got to get on, the sense of urgency, time, rush to get more what? That there's this cycle, the rat in the cage, going round and round. So it is an incredibly serious problem. Some people are beginning to understand it, to get the problem. Changes are occurring at the micro level. It's hard to see the macro, although Pediatric Society has had their limits, recommended limits. So there's information available. People can begin, if small groups of people get it, the importance of human beings. The thing that's so difficult, a core of the marketing, a core of the belief system for human beings was, we will have more free time. I heard from teachers, we were told that putting computers in the school would free the teachers from needing to interact with the kids. And I'm apoplectic. I'm saying, what? You want to set them in front of a computer so that you can get your paperwork done. Now, that's all around that kind of belief system. I have too much to do, so I can't be involved in this relationship with
So,
kids. And it's all backwards. It's skewed. If we can begin to put the relationship, the human relationships of back, number one, what's going on there? And once we shift the placement and see what's happening on that level, this is so oversimplified right now. I'm just saying, what are you saying to myself?
no,
Whoa.
no, 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 no. You've explained that very well. You know, you're just saying there about the computers in schools, and what this reminded me of is an argument you make in the book as well. You know, technology should really give us more free time, but the opposite has happened. And we take something like email, which Oliver mentions in his book. It's like, you know, in theory, that should give us an abundance of free time. But because it's so quick to send an email, we're like back and forth, back and forth. Whereas if it was letters in the past, you might send one or two per week. Whenever you got the communication, it was so much more thoughtful and meaningful. And, you know, because you only get one chance at it. So that's something that came to mind. And then another thing, I'm not sure what triggered this, but even just yesterday, right? I was finishing off work for the day, and I felt like in this really rushed state, like, oh, I've got to get this done, and then I've got to go do that, and and I was in this very sort of, I suppose, almost like I suppose, negative, almost anxious state or whatever. And then I was thinking, like, it just hit me because I had this interview with you today on the concept of speed. I was just like, what if I just don't act on this right now? Like, what if I just slow down? So I literally just sat down and I just sort
Whoa.
of let what was ever there just be there, you know, the emotions,
Wow.
whatever. I was just like, you know, I'm just going to feel whatever is here. And it made me think, you know, like, maybe so much of our drive to be in a rush all the time is that we're just unwilling to feel our emotions and our feelings because we just think, I want to get away from that, you know.
Right.
And so the question I'm sort of leading into here is, to you, you know, what are the benefits of slowing down? Like, what happens when we slow down, and what changes have you seen in your clients whenever they slow down?
Wow. That's wonderful. I usually don't have to convince people about slowing down, but I mean, because that's supposed in the culture, that's a value with thoughtfulness, reflection, still valued, but people aren't able to access it within themselves. People aren't learning to pause and reflect.
Mm,
uh, People in recovery often have the best tools and skill about the importance of looking inward, about listening to themselves, because that's part of a recovery process. And technology lets people not worry about feelings. Don't worry, you don't have to, it'll pass in a second. Move on, gear up. I have people, I'm talking, they've asked me a question, you know, and they're there, okay, and I'm saying, hang on, you know, I'm saying, hang on. And I will say to people in other settings, I feel rushed here. I'm not, I'm not connected. And it creates pathology. It
mm,
creates ADD. Not all, I'm not saying that. I don't know the science of ADD, but I know that people forget what they were saying, what the thought was, that the move it on is to get to an outcome. What's the next? And this thing called efficiency, that we're supposed to do everything as quickly as possible. You're right. The email takes up time. We're dragging to uh, to get it all done. We've become, in essence, it's like we took the bottle to bed, and now many people are up late at night with their computer with that blue light that isn't supposed to be good for us before bed, trying to finish emails of whatever kind. Lots of people have taken to creating limits for themselves. How long an email, what they'll answer. I mean, very different ways of managing. And it's like, how do people learn to drink? Oh, same thing, as you know, that you just don't start drinking and never stop. So the notion of having limits must come back into society.
Mm.
The value of limits, unbelievable freedoms for people within structures of containment, unbelievable possibility through the attachments that children can have with family, with peers. And these have, in many cases with technology, the attachment now is number one technology for all ages. And then we'll think about anything else. But it's human attachment and the growth and the sense of space, permission, protection, safety. So many young people are terrified that they're going to be called on for something and they have no idea how to answer what's happening. As you found in the book, the young people who believe that the answers are all in the technology in the palm of their hand, that they don't have the answer. And people will tell me, I don't have to figure it out anymore. So that we're creating, in essence, in my mind, greater and greater emptiness, because we're assigning life tasks that human beings used to take to the computer. We can all become technicians, but the emptiness factor is profound in young people and in grown-ups. It is profound.
The way you're describing this, Stephanie, like so many light bulbs are going off in my mind right now, because, we've been doing this summit for the past maybe 7 months now. So I've spoke to a lot of different people on the subject, but what
Wow.
you're saying is putting it into a completely different perspective and context for me. And something that is coming to mind here is what you said there about attachments. And it seems that our attachment to technology leads to shallowness, it leads to speed, it leads to rushing, right? And we move more and more
Right.
towards that as a society, this attachment to technology and to screens. It's like a quick hit. It's like it's a
Right.
quick fix. Whereas, genuine human connection, like real attachment relationships, if you want to have that, you have to slow down and you have to go deep. And it's like that's sort of the choice we have. And there's a really interesting book on a similar subject. I read it because the title really grabbed me. But in this book, the person that's writing the book, he went to a mentor one time and he said, I really want to live like a spiritual life. I really want to live like a good life. What advice would you give me? And the man said, ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And
Right.
the book is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's really interesting. But
Yes.
what I'm asking here now is, you've done a lot of work in this area, Stephanie, and you've helped people break this addiction to speed. And you've done it in Menlo Park, right beside Silicon Valley, which is like, if we're talking in Lord of the Rings context here, it's like Mordor. It's like the the place where you have to go to destroy the ring. But
Uh-huh.
what have you found most helpful for people to face their limitations, and yeah, that might be a tricky question to ask, because I know it's very nuanced and different for each situation, but are there any things that you've found that have been really beneficial when working with your clients?
Oh God, it really is hard, because a client for me would be my would be different than a parent at a school board meeting, or first things first, in a sense, the people who would be beginning to be concerned, the people of coming from all over, a client coming in because of her own drinking, or somebody worried about kids, all of these various things, but also in every other walk of life, on my walks, wherever technology has had its impact. People when they begin to worry about themselves, when there's a problem, sadly, uh, um, something happens, parents can see it. Many parents worry way, way ahead, because they are watching what they see and they're unhappy about that. So the parents will sound an alarm sometimes, at the same time that they can't get off their equipment. So first of all, people are getting scared. They actively change schools. The move away, the great exodus from California, in a sense, but trying to slow things down right away. Once you see, oh, too much, people wisely have a weekend scheduled with 8 activities for their kids, for them, and they go, go, go. That's the lifestyle. And they'll suddenly sit down. Whoa, let's take something out. Let's calm, so that the language can help. Words like slow, calm. Slow is a real trigger word. That's a
Uh,
psychology. It's a trigger word, because I'm going to fail if I slow. Slow is failing, but not anymore. People say, oh, then I'm going to find access again to myself, perhaps. People know somebody's home. If possible, if we don't get so far away, if we don't all become the robots, having turned over the knowledge base, to the computer, so we don't have to have it anymore. Wow, that kind of thinking. So all those pieces come into my office, or they come in, when I'm out on the trail, they come in with my granddaughters in their school experience. My daughter, who's on a front line of troubled people, troubled kids. So the consequences are out there. And as we become willing to acknowledge the problems, to name them, as I become willing to say, yep, we start with the concrete, with the practical, in terms of schedule. Instead of 5 activities this weekend, we're going to do 4 or 3. We're going to learn what all of us feels right now, and it's going to be a reduction. And we're going to be, at the same time we're reducing our activities, we're looking at when we spend time with each other, how we do that, when we spend time, how that goes. There's going to have to be this grassroots, micro level revaluing, as you said earlier, revaluing of human connection, thought, pondering something together. And that is essential. That is essential. Otherwise, you see the depression in all ages, the depression, the massive anxiety, life is just going too fast. It's taken over. And if I feel emptier than I ever felt, there's trouble on the horizon.
for sure, for sure.
Yep.
That's beautifully said. And I think that insight about you know, like if you're going to do 5 things this weekend, like reduce it to 3. And the thing is, like, whenever you do that, you have more space between things. You have more time
Yeah.
for that kind of right hemisphere activity, and
It's,
you can put a lot more quality into what you're doing as well. Can I share something that I just found helpful for slowing down? I was like,
yes.
I haven't been doing it recently, but a few months ago, I got into the habit of, it was actually after listening to that audiobook. But I would come into the place where I work in the morning, and I would make a cup of tea, but I would make the cup of tea like ridiculously slow. Like, I mean, like I would watch every single movement. Like I would like watch my hand lifting the cup, feel the weight of the cup, like setting it down, like pouring the water, etc., etc. And that really like grounded me for the day. Like it made me a lot calmer. It's a simple thing, but it's something I'm going to do every day. And it was just like a nice kind of ritual in the morning, you know. So I found that that helped me.
That's
But
beautiful. I mean,
uh,
just a quick comment, that a tea ceremony is well known as a practice, so that
okay.
you have found it for yourself for centering all of these ways, because we have so willingly given up connecting with ourselves first, primary. That is a beautiful story, Niall. Thank you.
Yep. And then just the final question I wanted to ask Stephanie, just to wrap up, if you could get a letter to
Hmm.
everybody in the world that struggles with addiction or is struggling with an addiction, what are some of the key points that you might write on that letter?
Wow. Here you go. I'm going to go around it a bit,
Okay.
because I would first want to know who's going to want to receive this from me. The key points that I might tell somebody about my understanding of addiction and recovery. I try to include recovery. There's the hope. There's there's the hope. There's the power of something greater. I didn't have get into spirituality very much, but it's core, and it's core ground level. It's middle level. It's up. It's my relationship with myself, and my sense of something greater is very, very central. If I'm going to write a letter to the people on the planet, then my first thing is uh, uh, it would be, in a sense, generic. They'll read it or they won't, because again, my sense is that people will come to terms as they get ready to see, to be able to understand something's happening here.
Mm,
Something, we're in trouble here. And of course, that's our world right now. And then be able to pause. The pause is a huge piece of slow. And I don't know, I might put this in a letter. You can tell, absolutely, I'm not going to write a letter like this to the world. It's just, wait a sec. Um, you know, uh, um, but the notions that are out there already, many beliefs that are out there, again, uh, as we are launched far into a global world, are we going to live out of control?
mm,
Is that how we want to continue to define ourselves? As, look at the progress I am making to be faster and faster out of control. What's my relationship with myself, my relation with something greater? How, how do I, what do I do with that? And I don't know what that would come to be, something to tell people. I told you that a little bit ago about slowing down the children. Oh my gosh. I have a new project on grandchildren. Someday it'll be fun to talk with you about that. I interviewed grandmothers 5 to 8 years ago about their concerns about technology and their grandkids. Whoa, whoa. They were watching their grandkids, the lure of it. It's like the candy store. But anyway, that's again another diversion. What do we value? What do we value? And if we could very quickly and slowly both, if we could begin to move back to the centerpiece of human bonding, of human attachment and relationship, if we could put that ahead of tech, if we could a profit, money, all those things, we're still behind on that, but I think there's hope to get there.
Wow. That is such a powerful note to end on. Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing that. And
Thank you
yeah,
for having me.
for your time today. And where can people learn more about your work and find you online? You have a website you'd like to point people to?
Ah, I do have a website. It's stephaniebrownphd.com, and it's all small letters.
StephanieBrownPhD.com. Okay, we'll link to that in the show notes as
Thank
well.
you.
And yeah, Stephanie, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today and learning from you. And I want to wish you the very best going forward. And
Thank you.
just getting the word out about this very, very vital issue.
Thank you so much, Niall. I'm just so honored to be part of this program. Thank you very much.